without really setting it. Just as you did with Graham, I'd appreciate if you would just click on the little man icon and just use the green tick to show that you are able to see the slide as is up, please. Okay, thank you, Darcy. I can see that yours is there. And Mark, and Kath, and hopefully Wendy can also see it as well. Excellent, thank you all. So I want to start the session by just giving you a little bit of background. The book is based on 10 years of experience. I've been teaching now 18 years, and I've taught in both the primary and the secondary sector. But about 10 years ago, I came to the realisation that homework could and probably should be done in a different way. And that's where this book has come from. Ian Gilbert approached me to write the book and wanted me to share with people my approach for doing homework in a different way. And that's what I want to share with you this afternoon, so that hopefully when you go back into school tomorrow, later on this week, or at worst, after Christmas, when you've had time to think about it, you'll be able to work with your learners so that they can be giving you more. Because as it says, it is about getting the most out of homework without really setting it. And as I'll lead you through the session, it's about getting more from the children. So the first thing to ask is this, really, and it's something that I have in my teacher journal and I look at every morning. And it's a question that I think we should all ask ourselves. Are you consistently the sort of teacher you would want your own children to have? Now, it's particularly pertinent for me because I actually teach at the school where my daughter is at. And last year I had to teach her science. And it's all about looking for the inspiration and where you look for in your class. To me, I think it's vital that we have a base standard. And I wouldn't want to deliver anything that I wasn't happy with for my own child, which sort of leads into the quote from Haim Gott, which I'll stop talking and let you just have a read of for a moment. Now, I know that when I first read that, it actually struck a real chord with me. Having trained as a PE teacher, many people sort of see that we are misery makers by nature. In actual fact, John Burnham West did some research a few years ago for the SSAT, where it showed that the top 100 business people in Britain all named a teacher in their top 3 motivators that got them to where they are today. Sadly, they also named a teacher in the bottom 3 of the demotivation list, and almost every single one of the demotivators was a PE teacher. And when I read this first, I felt I needed to be doing something different, and it totally ties in with my philosophy about unhomework, about how we get the most for children, how actually it's our response that will determine how a child proceeds. And I wonder, as we think about this, if Graham, you'd be kind enough to run the first poll, please, that this image is often put up. And so what I'd like to do is just run a very quick poll. Who was your best teacher and why? And Graham will share this poll with you. So who was your favourite teacher and why were they your favourite teacher? Now, clearly, you know, the image is from Dead Poets Society, a film that many cite as an inspirational teacher. And in actual fact, Robin Williams spoke about his own teachers. And whilst it would be nice to think that our own students will go on and talk about us in the future, I think back to 2 of my teachers, and one at primary school and one at secondary school. The primary school teacher was Mr. Johnson, who was just a pure inspiration. He only arrived with me having 2 years to go at my primary school, and he actually totally changed the face of the school. And the second one was an English teacher called Mr. Fricker at my secondary school. And it wasn't because I was particularly good at English, but he used to get us doing things that we just probably didn't believe we could. We went to an all-boys school. He had us writing poetry. In actual fact, without us knowing, he entered us into a poetry competition, and many of us had to go and perform at a county level. And it was that being prepared to do things that we didn't believe we could do for both Mr. Johnson and for Mr. Fricker is the essence of what I want to do as a teacher. And I wonder, who was your favourite teacher and why did you choose them? I'll just give you a moment to type your answers to who it was for you. Excellent. I can see someone sent back that Mr. Mitchell has inspired them to compete at a high level. Mr. Strickland's made maths easy. Mr. Reed being strict but fair. Really knowledgeable and great enthusiasm. And then Mrs. Anderson, who gave faith in Wendy's abilities and choice over some work. And that's an interesting answer, Wendy, because ultimately the choice over some work is going to be really part of the bedrock of the Unhomework that we'll look at later on. But it's interesting looking at the answers. It's about understanding, inspiring, and actually then enthusiasm, all of which we would hopefully want for our own learners, and we would want for our children to say about us, I would hope. But unfortunately, this tends to be the situation more often than not in our environment. And actually people wonder what it is we are doing in schools at the moment. How are we preparing our own children? How are we preparing them for the future? And I would like to think that this isn't something that we would subscribe to, certainly not obviously having an afternoon session after a day at work already. I'm guessing that this isn't what we all believe, but it is what some people believe is going on in education at the moment. An alternative view would be this, which was presented by Sir Ken Robinson in one of his TED Talks. And in terms of this, obviously, we look at the children that we are preparing now. Being a current primary school teacher, having taught at secondary, I'm well aware that for the children that are in my classes now, it will almost be 2050 before they are my age, which is obviously quite a scary thought. But as we look down this list, I find it hard to believe that anybody would really disagree with any of these things. But none of them really talk about having great exam results, having higher achievement than anybody else. It's all about preparing them for the global education community that actually they're going to inherit. So as you just look down that list, I'd ask you to just have a think. There isn't a poll on this, but just have a think. How do you secure that for your learners in your classroom on a day-to-day basis? Now, obviously, some of them are fairly easy. We look at collaboration and clearly getting children working together, not only in class and outside of class, is a fundamental for everybody, I would think. We all want self-direction.